I am Pocho Salcedo, and I welcome our audience in South America and viewers from coast to coast in the United States of America. Once again, extending you an invitation from the Studio 3 here in New York for a journey beyond the headlines. Welcome to the DNA of the news. Theoretically, when we look at the two closest points between North America and Europe, we think of a distance of 4,560 kilometers, about 2,833 miles. However, there's a fissure in the submerged tectonic plates supporting both continents, and where people with outstretched arms can touch at the same time the continent of America and Europe. Today, we're talking to an expert in this geological feature and phenomena, and he also is a guide that introduces people from all around the world to visit that particular place. We have with us from Reykjavik, Iceland, Mr. Tobias Kos. Tobias Kos, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
I started breath hold diving for small coins in German high diving pools when I was 7 years of age. It wasn't until in 1995 that I learned to equalize my ears on a potty open water diver course. I started managing the operating business of Dive.is in summer 2006. With my longtime experience as a potty staff instructor, I have been setting the standards for all dive courses and tours conducted by Dive.is. Today I lead our people operations and help out with some strategic planning. A few years later in 1998 I did my potty diving instructor education on Roatan, Honduras. I have been living in Iceland since 2001 with my wife Thorn and our 4 kids.
Tobias, Iceland is one-of-a-kind country. The population is small, less than 400,000 inhabitants. It became independent in 1918 and established as a republic in 1944. Iceland is a member of NATO, but it does not have a standing army. You became center stage in the Soccer World Cup in 2018 against all odds. What else should we know about Iceland?
Well, yeah, you mentioned the Soccer World Cup. That's a good start. So that was a great marketing campaign for our country. There was also a big volcanic eruption here, both a couple of years ago, which stopped the whole air traffic for a couple of days. So that was another big marketing campaign for Iceland. And now we had again a big volcanic eruption. That was kind of a tourist eruption where you could hike to and see the red glowing lava flow down the mountain. Really interesting and beautiful. It just stopped actually, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. So at the moment we are waiting for another one. But Iceland is a volcanic island here in the North Atlantic, and is really famous really famous for its beautiful nature and fantastic landscapes, for the waterfalls, the glaciers, the rivers and the mountains. So the fjords, it's really a nature paradise, and people come here from all over the world to really experience untouched nature and landscapes.
Thank you. Iceland holds many beautiful places, one of them undeniably being the Thingvellir National Park. Still, thousands flock each year with the express intention of seeing the underwater beauty of Silfra. What is Silfra and the Silfra fissure, and why people come to see it?
Yeah, that is a beautiful question. And in my opinion, it's the most fantastic natural phenomena that we have in Iceland, even though there are many beautiful ones. But the Silfra fissure is one-of-a-kind phenomenon. So what we have is Iceland is an island in the middle of the North Atlantic, and is actually a huge volcano that came out from the ocean floor over millions of years. and then broke through at some point, broke through the surface. So we have two tectonic plates, the North American tectonic plate and then the Eurasian tectonic plates. And they both meet here and actually move apart about 2 centimeters every year. And then lava comes up, and that's how actually Iceland has been formed as a whole, to make things real simple. And what happened in the last kind of few thousand years is that in the national park Þingvellir, which is just about 50 kilometers away from Reykjavik, the capital, that's where exactly these two tectonic plates meet and move apart. So when they move apart about 2 centimeters per year, not much happens usually every year, but then over maybe 10 years or so, there is quite some tension built up between those tectonic plates and all the earth mass underneath. And then that tension is usually released in big earthquakes. And when that happens, the earth opens up and cracks open up and so on. And that is actually what has happened in Silfra, not only once, but once to start with. That's where the crack in 1789, I believe, first opened up. But then through additional earthquakes, it widened and deepened and changed. So it's a fissure that constantly changes. And then we have many of those fissures in Iceland. And then what is so special about that particular one at Silfra, it's right by the Þingvellir Lake, which is one of the largest lakes in Iceland. And this fissure is therefore filled with water. And that's not the only thing. The water actually comes from a glacier, which is 50 kilometers in the other direction. And the melting water of the glacier kind of melts off the glaciers, sippers down into the ground, and then travels underground through the porous lava for between 30 or 100 years, these 50 kilometers, and then reaches that area of the Silfra fissure. And as we know, then lava is a fantastic filter for water. So that water that travels there for centuries, through the lava rock, when it comes finally down to Silfra and it comes into the Silfra fissure through an underground well, then this water is so clear, so pristine, so pure as water can only get. So it's really the clearest and purest water in this corner of the galaxy.
It is so interesting. Let me clarify one thing, and this feature is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge is the most extended mountain range globally, running from Greenland down to the South Atlantic, over 6,000 kilometers, the deepest place at 2,500 meters below sea level. But these volcanic eruptions created, among other things, islands, such as the Azores and Iceland. So Iceland is the result of a volcanic eruption?
Yes, that's correct. That's what we have, the North Atlantic Ridge, which, comes up here and then goes down there to the Azores and further down into the Atlantic. And that's where these two tectonic plates meet. And since these plates at this part of the world move apart, then it makes space for lava from underneath to come through. And that has been building up over, millions of years, a big mountain range, you could say, which is called the North Atlantic Ridge. And it's, I believe, the highest mountains in the world, even higher than the Himalayas, even though the Himalayas, of course, are going higher up into the sky because they start at sea level. But the North Atlantic Ridge starts a few thousand meters, down at the ocean floor.
I found so interesting that your explanation that the water travels for 50 years or more from the glacier. And normally the water from the glaciers is kind of muddy, but ends up in a most pristine, crystalline way down into the fissure, Silfra. And so that probably is a unique, most pristine water, as you said, in that part of the world.
Yes, exactly. That's true. So the melting water, when it first melts off the glacier, then it is very muddy and like a brown sauce. But then as soon as it kind of hits the ground, it comes into the ground, and then the mud stays behind, and only the water is left. And and then this water kind of sippers slowly through that porous lava rock, that comes from further volcanic eruptions. And as you might know, lava rock is also used now a lot from the distilleries who produce, whiskey or gin or something like that. They use lava rock as a filter because it filters the water so well. It makes it so, pure.
And now in this second segment of the program, we will be focusing on the experience of being amid that fissure. It is like touching one of the continents with one hand and placing the other hand yet in another continent. We'll be right back after a short break to explore this part of the story.
As the world faces the challenges of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, Lions recognize that kindness matters now more than ever. And Lions and Leos are finding ways to continue to serve our communities. For more than 100 years, in times of need, Lions always find a way to help those around them. And after we emerge from this, we will be stronger than ever. Visit lionsclubs.org to learn more.
A flu shot is the best way families can protect their kids from getting the flu and spreading it to other family members. And it's covered by Medicaid and CHIP, along with doctor's appointments, prescriptions, and more. Learn more at insurekidsnow.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Gonna be easy because in the dry suit you're floating on top of the water. If you look underwater, you'll see the Earth a million years ago.
We take this opportunity to greet two of our stations in the United States, NCM Hub Channels 8 and 98 in Newburyport, Massachusetts, and WRCT White Rose TV in York, Pennsylvania. It is an honor to be included in your programming grid. And we are back with Tobias Coase and he is joining us from Iceland. Tobias, we were exploring the surroundings and a place where people from all over the world come and visit, expecting a unique experience. I'm speaking about the Silfra Fissure. They're diving through frigid waters. Tell us what that experience is like and why people are coming by the thousands to Silfra.
Yeah, nice question. Silfra is really rated by all the dive magazines around the world that have visited throughout the last decades as one of the top 3 or top 5 dives in the world. And the reason is actually twofold. And one is the amazing visibility that you have when you're diving. Divers are always speaking about the visibility and comparing, how was the visibility on your dive? How far could you see? And like if you take the Caribbean, for example, then sometimes you have a visibility from 20 meters or 30 meters or sometimes even 40 meters. And that's really amazing. That's fantastic. That's good as it gets, really. In Silfra, due to the reason that the water is filtered through many decades through the porous lava rock and then comes into the fissure through an underground well, the water is just as clear as it can get. So you have a visibility for 100 meters and more. And divers don't believe that when they read that or hear that somewhere. So they come, to see that with their own eyes.
Well, that must be a fantastic experience, and we can see some video rolling of what it looks like. There are 3 main dive sites: the Silfra Hall, Silfra Cathedral, and the Silfra Lagoon. What are those sites, and how different is one from the other?
Yes, that is right. So we have these 3 areas, and then actually when you come into Silfra, there is a little platform that you can step easily into the water, and that is called the Big Crack, right in the beginning. And that's really where you see, what divers do. They put their, let themselves fall forward into the water with their head first, and then they look down, and people get afraid of height. Because the first pool is already 11 meters deep, but it looks as if you're just looking through air. So you're kind of thinking you're falling because it's so clear and you just see the ground right in front of you and as if there's nothing in between. And then when people have kind of realized that they're in water and that they're floating, they look forward and then you see this crack, this fissure. And then the one side is, really the North American tectonic plate, and the other side is the Eurasian plate. And then when you swim through the Big Crack, maybe at a depth of 5 or 6 meters, there's one point where you can hold one hand on the wall in America and one hand on the wall in Europe, which is really the Kodak moment for the dive. And once that is done, we come over some shallow parts and then come into exactly these areas that you mentioned, the Silfra Hall, which is kind of like a big hall, a big, area of maybe 10 by 30 meters. So a big room, about 12 meters depth, really beautiful. And then you have these lava rock walls on the side and green algae. You actually see this in this picture here behind me, these really vivid green colors and then the blue colors of the water when you look really far into it. And then comes the Silfra Cathedral, and that's maybe where you really feel the power of this place. It is really deep. It's about 23 meters deep and it's about 80 meters across. So you can see all the way across and you see the walls and you see the depth. So you're in there and you kind of feel really like you're being in a cathedral. It's kind of like a spiritual experience, I would say, to dive through that area. Really wonderful. And then in the end of the cathedral, we take a turn into the lagoon. And the lagoon is shallow, maximum 5 meters deep. And but really big, so it's more than 120 meters across from one end to the other. And you can usually see it, when you come to the one end, you can usually see the other end of the cathedral. So you have a visibility of about 120 meters.
That is excellent. You have done it so many times, but I can see in your eyes relishing just sharing the experience with us. I cannot imagine what is living it or seeing it for the first time. The water temperature in Silfra is 2 to 4 Celsius all year round. This converts to 35 to 39 Fahrenheit, indeed ice cold water. What are the implications for diving?
Yeah, exactly. It's just above freezing, so the water is extremely cold. And in the old days, the first divers that went into it, I think the first diver went diving in Silfra in 1966. At those days, there didn't really exist any dry suits, and that's what we are using today, but wetsuits. But if you have a wetsuit and you go into that type of cold water, you usually don't last very long. You get so cold, and then it's of course dangerous. You can get hypothermia, and you're not going to enjoy the experience. So we use dry suits, and underneath the dry suit, you wear a thick geothermal undergarment. It's kind of like a woolly bear, which really keeps you warm. And then you have a neoprene dry suit that has its boots on, and then you put it up, and that just has a zipper on your back, and around your wrist there's a rubber seal, and around your neck there's also a seal, so no water comes into the neck, no water comes into the hands, and then in the back there's a zipper, so you're completely watertight. The only thing that really looks out of the dry suit is your head and your hands, and then you're going to put gloves over the hands and a hood over your head, and then you have the dive mask in your face. So the only thing that is really exposed to the ice cold water is an area around your mouth. And that's why I have this beautiful mustache. It keeps me a little bit warmer down there. And that's what you feel, when you first come into the water and you put your face into the water, you feel that ice cold water touching your lips, and that's really where you understand where you are, because otherwise you're warm. But also about that area in your face, you don't have to be worried, because it's going to be numb after like 60 seconds or something like that. So you're not feeling it anymore.
Thank you. Let me ask you about the number of people that are diving. It is an average in the few seasons, I guess, pre-COVID, that an estimated 20,000 divers each year visit. Is it overexposed? Is it dangerous to have so many people in and out of the Silfra fissure?
So, good question. What I would like to actually clarify here, that 90% of the people that are coming to visit Silfra, of these 20,000 last year, I think a few years back when we had the most tourists in Iceland, it was over 50,000 people that came to Silfra in 1 year. If I remember that correctly, I would have to check, but I think so. But of that amount of people, there's only about 10% of those people are real scuba divers that are diving with a tank on their back. 90% of the people are snorkelers, like everybody that has never dived before can come and snorkel in Silfra. So you're getting a dry suit as well. You're lying on the surface, and you just have a snorkel, in your mouth, and can just swim through the fissure and have a pretty similar experience as a diver. So in regards to, is this, or the second part of your question, is this too much or is it dangerous? Of course, ice cold water in a rigid environment as Silfra, you always have to have precautions. So we're quite strict, on the questions that we ask for people. We want to see if people are healthy. They have to fill out a medical statement and so forth to see that you're really ready for this experience. And most people are. So, and then it's really well organized. So there are, only 6 snorkelers per one guide together in the water. And then you have to wait for, I think, about 10 or 15 minutes before another group of 6 snorkelers can come into the fissure. So it's not really crowded. When you're in the water, you have a really personal experience. and you're also well taken care of because there's not too many people per guide. Divers, on the other side, they can only be 3 divers with 1 guide.
As I said, I can see in your eyes how excited you become talking about it. I understand tomorrow or in a couple of days, you will be there again. How has it changed the way you introduce the experience to people that come for the first time? From the first years you did that to today, how's it changed presenting Silfra to the newcomers?
That's an interesting question. So, well, of course, for me, I have really made my hobby as my profession. So I have been super interested in diving and super interested in the geology and biology and in tourism and so forth, and guiding people has always interested me. So in the beginning, I didn't have that much information and probably had rather shorter briefings and less things to say. And then with time, you learn more and more. So that, I would say, is really what has changed throughout the years. You have learned more, you have gained more experience, more things have, occurred on tours that you have to mention in the briefing so people are prepared. So I think that's just the normal process, the evolution of working with this and trying to make the experience better for everybody.
Well, Tobias, it has been a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for taking us through this experience. Indeed, you have raised the curiosity of many, and we hope to meet you next time in Iceland. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on this program. My pleasure. All the best to you.
Thank you. Likewise. Humans lived on this planet for thousands of years, yet the passage of time is often interrupted by the beauty and enigma of nature. We must preserve this planet so our children and the children of our children also enjoy it in all its power and might. I'm looking forward to the next opportunity when together we can explore the DNA of the news. Thank you for the privilege of your company.